If you're a big sketch comedy nerd like me, you probably started with Monty Python, I'm assuming. If you're around my age, you probably had that experience where you're 10 or 12 years old and a friend of yours has a copy of Holy Grail. And it's kind of one of those things where you watch it and it's the greatest thing you've ever seen in your life and the funniest thing you've ever seen. You're dying laughing, you're crying, or it's corny, it's lame, and you don't get it. You know what I mean? There are always those, it's like you got Python or you didn't get it. But if you got them, you craved more of it. And unfortunately for Python, and unfortunately for people born in the 80s, they were done by the time you were born. So you kind of had to go through their back catalog, and then it's like you get to Meaning of Life, and that's it. And it's like, well, where do I go now? I need more of this vibe. I need more of this, like what this gives me. And I think that for most of us, it's probably that feeling of like the court jester really sticking it to the king. Like to the point where he would be beheaded. But we live in a more civilized time where you can't do that. And I'm sure that, you know, especially Gilliam and those people would argue that that was the whole point of Python and sketch comedy and satire in general, was to punch up to power and to stick it to power and make them look stupid. You know, to pull down the emperor's pants. And not only is the emperor not wearing clothes, but Gilliam snuck up behind him and pantsed him on stage. So if you're that kind of person and you need that kind of thing fed for you, there wasn't really anywhere to go. And you had these little morsels. And in the late 60s and 70s, you had Monty Python. In the mid 70s, you would have had like those first couple great casts of SNL. In the early 80s, if you were a real sketch comedy nerd, you were tracking down SCTV, you know, and the McKenzie brothers, those guys. I mean, really, you were getting like bootleg tapes of the McKenzie brothers in 1983. But then you had that really great second coming of SNL. You had like Phil Hartman, Dana Carvey, Mike Myers, John Lovitz, and all at the peak of their game. You know, all of that was the SNL era with like Colon Blow and like Old Glory Insurance. Sorry, I laugh at myself, but Old Glory Insurance is like, if you were there for that, you probably still think of it when you see these commercials for old people insurance. You're like, Old Glory Insurance, for when the metal ones decide to come for you. And they will. That's like every insurance commercial to me is Sam Waterston saying that. Anyway. Robots need old people's medicine for fuel. Sorry. So anyway, you get beyond those great SNL casts in the 80s, and then you get to my favorite sketch comedy, which is like Mr. Show around the mid-90s with Bob Odenkirk and David Cross, and Bob Odenkirk was just coming off head writer of SNL at that time. And so I think they wanted to punch up even harder, and they went to a smaller, cheaper venue, which, believe it or not, was HBO at the time. It was, I think David Cross makes jokes about it in Mr. Show, where he'll just go break the fourth wall and he'll point to the chicken wings menu off stage, and he'll be like, "Do you see where we do this show? The wingdings and things, $4.95." But I think they did that so that they could be like, it's the Mr. Show Cracker Barrel. I'm Tatiana, the weather hermaphrodite. And so anyway, that's when I really started to click with like, I think I might want to be one of those improv losers. You know, I'm sorry to call them losers, but there's a great joke even in Daddy's Home 2 about improv people. And John Lithgow says, well, I joined an improv group, and after he got divorced, like it was a good thing. And Mark Wahlberg is like, dude, the only people that join improv groups either are divorced or someone divorced them because they joined an improv group. But, and this is a huge but, my favorite sketch comedy of all time is primarily improv, or at least based in improv, and it's the Upright Citizens Brigade. And I think that they brought something to the world that is fundamentally missing now. They stated their ethos in the very beginning of every episode, and it is the most perfect summary of an ethos I can think of, and the most compatible with me. And it's that they find chaos where it exists, and they create chaos where it does not. And it's like the idea of like the court jester run amok, where he's not just punching up at the king anymore, he's punching up at every form of authority and power known to man. That everyone who thinks they're big is going to slip on a banana peel today. Everyone who had big plans is going to get a bucket of ice water. Because that's just the way it is, because fuck you. And the Upright Citizens Brigade, and that, you know, they're those four originals of Amy Poehler, Matt Besser, Ian Roberts, and Matt Walsh. And I actually went to the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater in New York back when that was the only one on 22nd Street, I think it was. And I would go see the Upright Citizens, and then Channel 101 started pretty close by, if you're familiar with them. That's where people like Dan Harmon, Andy Samberg, Jorma Taccone, that's where they got their start. And I felt like I was, I'm rubbing shoulders with all of this future talent. And maybe I'll blend in. And no. Anyway, oh God, this is already 6 minutes. So I want to get to the Upright Citizens Brigade. And they capture what I'm trying to do right now. There's a perfect scene where Alan Greenspan is speaking to Congress about the Fed. And it's like he has an earpiece in his ear, and Amy Poehler's like feeding him what to say. And she's like, Greenspan, change the currency to maple leaves. And he freezes, and she's like, do it, Greenspan, we made you. It's just this whole idea of like all governance, all reality is this giant duck soup Marx Brothers level farce. And that there are these like, there's this like gremlin-like race in jumpsuits that's making it all happen, that there's these anarchists out there that are causing every bit of frustration and annoyance you've ever had. It's a magical thought, and it's helped me to find the confidence that they're really out there keeping people like Donald Trump and the Clinton machine in check. That those people were never, ever going to rise to power without looking stupid. Because there's this force out there of court jesters always punching up as hard as they can at them. And that's a nice thought for me. It's a nice thought to think that the UCB is always out there operating. And I'm going to do like a really good retrospective of the UCB. I'm a big fan of Pockets of the Future. I hope if I have any overlap with him, you enjoy my videos. I try, obviously, I emulate his style a little bit. I think that I'm a much angrier, irascible version of him. If he watches my videos, he probably shakes his head like, oh, that punk. I don't want to turn this into a video about Paul. How did I get on that? Anyway, I'll do more videos on the Upright Citizens Brigade. They are my favorite thing. Isn't that weird? It's like if I had to pick one, it always oscillates between Mystery Science Theater and the Upright Citizens Brigade. And they deserve more attention. They deserve more credit. I think you know who Amy Poehler is. You know who Matt Walsh is. You probably even know who Matt Besser and Ian Roberts are, although indirectly. Like I could tell you stuff that they wrote, really good stuff they wrote, or stuff that they were a part of as part of an ensemble, and you'd be like, oh yeah, those guys. So I really want to cover the Upright Citizens Brigade more. That's coming in the future. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.